Sagittarius, a silent ending will open the door to a sacred beginning. There are endings in life that arrive without thunder, without chaos, without the noise of final words. They slip into your life quietly, like a door closing softly behind you. Sagittarius, you know this silence well. It may have been the end of a relationship that simply faded, a friendship that no longer resonated, a dream you slowly outgrew, or a part of yourself that you finally chose to release. These endings often leave you questioning. Was it real? Did it matter? Why does it still ache even though no words were spoken? Yet, silence does not mean emptiness. In truth, silent endings carry sacred power. They prepare the soil of your life for something you cannot yet see. They are not punishments but invitations, clearing space for a beginning that carries deeper truth, greater love, and more authentic alignment with who you are becoming. For Sagittarius, who lives with an open heart and a restless spirit, these moments can feel unsettling. But hidden within them is the promise of renewal, the assurance that every quiet ending is also the threshold of a sacred beginning. If you feel that you are standing at such a doorway now, know this: you are not losing yourself. You are shedding what no longer fits, so that your soul can step into the vastness it was always meant to claim. Stay with me. Like, share, and subscribe, so that together we can walk through this journey of endings and beginnings, and discover the sacred gift waiting for you beyond the silence. Gate 1: The quiet power of endings. Sagittarius, your fiery soul is accustomed to movement, to journeys, to the thrill of beginnings. You thrive when you feel the wind at your back, and the horizon stretching before you. Yet life does not always announce transitions with excitement or drama. Some of the most important shifts arrive quietly, almost unnoticed at first. A relationship grows cold, a passion slowly fades, a chapter of your life slips into memory without loud closure. These silent endings can feel confusing, as though you should have done more, said more, fought harder to keep them alive. But the truth is this: silence itself is the message. The quiet is telling you that this ending is not meant to wound you, but to gently release you into something greater. Silent endings carry a different energy than abrupt losses or dramatic breakups. They lack the explosion of conflict, yet their subtlety often makes them harder to understand. You may find yourself replaying memories, searching for a why, wondering if you missed something. But Sagittarius, not all endings are about fault or failure. Sometimes the soul simply outgrows what once felt like home. The silence you feel is not neglect. It is the universe's way of easing you out of what no longer fits, sparing you the chaos of unnecessary battles. Take, for example, the Sagittarius woman who spent years in a friendship that once felt inseparable. Slowly, the conversations dwindled. Their paths diverged. One day, she realized they hadn't spoken in months, and the bond had dissolved without a final argument. At first, she grieved the absence of closure. But with time, she understood that this ending had been sacred. It freed her energy for new connections, for relationships that aligned with who she had become. The silence was not rejection. It was transition. Sagittarius, your nature often resists endings. You prefer to leap forward, to chase after possibility rather than sit with loss. Yet if you avoid acknowledging the quiet close of chapters, you carry unnecessary weight. You cling to faded connections, old dreams, or outdated versions of yourself. Silent endings teach you the art of release. They invite you to trust that not everything must end in fire. Some endings are soft, like autumn leaves falling to make way for spring. There is quiet power in this. Endings strip away what is no longer essential. They remove distractions, illusions, and attachments that limit your growth. At first, the silence feels like emptiness. But emptiness is simply space being prepared. Sagittarius, you are an adventurer not only in the external world, but also in the soul. Silent endings give you the room to expand inwardly, to breathe into new dimensions of who you are becoming. Consider a Sagittarius man who poured himself into a career for years. He worked tirelessly, believing it was his destiny, until one day he realized his passion was gone. There was no dramatic moment, just a quiet knowing that his time there had ended. He resisted at first, fearing the uncertainty of leaving. But eventually, he honored the silence and let go. Months later, an unexpected opportunity arrived, one that aligned with his spirit and reignited his fire. The silent ending had been the doorway to a sacred beginning, he could not have imagined while clinging to the past. Sagittarius, endings are not punishments. They are realignments. Silent endings especially are gentle nudges, the universe whispering, "It is time." They require faith because they lack the clear drama that convinces you to move on. But within their quietness lies grace. They allow you to leave without bitterness, to step forward without chains. They remind you that not everything needs to be explained or understood. Sometimes you are simply meant to bow to the mystery. At this first gate, let yourself feel the truth. Not every ending is meant to shatter you. Some are meant to free you. The silence is not emptiness. It is sacred space, waiting to be filled with something new. And the moment you stop resisting, you begin to notice the beauty in what is unfolding. This is the quiet power of endings. They do not scream, yet they change everything. As we step into the next gate, Sagittarius, we will explore how these endings, though silent, carry hidden lessons and gifts that prepare you for beginnings more sacred than you ever dreamed. Gate 2: The lessons hidden in the silence. Sagittarius, the beauty of silent endings is that they do not come only to close a door. They come to teach. Within the absence of noise, conflict, or dramatic closure lies a sacred invitation to listen more deeply. Silence is not empty. It is full of lessons waiting for your soul to hear. For a sign like yours, always running toward the horizon, it may feel uncomfortable to sit in stillness. Yet in that stillness, truths rise. They are truths you may have overlooked in the noise of living, truths that only silence can reveal. One of the first lessons hidden in silent endings is self-awareness. When something quietly slips away, you are given space to reflect on who you were within that chapter, and who you are becoming now. Sagittarius, you have a gift for seeking truth, but often you look outside yourself, in philosophy, in adventure, in other people. Silent endings pull you inward. They ask, what did I learn from this? How did this shape me? What do I now know about myself that I didn't before? The absence of dramatic closure forces you to turn inward for answers, and in doing so, you gain wisdom that cannot be taken away. Think of the Sagittarius woman whose long-term partner grew distant until the relationship dissolved in silence. There were no heated arguments, no clear reasons, only absence. At first, she felt powerless, as if answers had been stolen from her. But over time, she realized the lesson was not about him, it was about her. She learned that she had silenced her own needs for too long, hoping the bond would survive. The quiet ending forced her to finally hear her own voice, to acknowledge desires she had long buried. That lesson became the seed of a new beginning in which she vowed never to abandon herself again. Another lesson found in silent endings is the practice of trust. Sagittarius, you are a seeker, but uncertainty often tests your faith. Silent endings rarely come with explanations, and this can leave your restless mind searching endlessly for closure. But sometimes closure is not given externally, it is chosen internally. Silence asks you to trust the unseen, to believe that even if you do not know why, the universe does. And if the universe closed this door gently, it is because another one is quietly preparing to open. Consider a Sagittarius man who worked for years at a company he thought was his forever path. When the company dissolved suddenly, there was no grand farewell, no recognition of his contributions, only silence. He felt discarded, invisible. Yet in that silence he discovered trust. Trust that he was not defined by a title. Trust that his worth was not tied to recognition. Trust that life would redirect him to something greater. And indeed, within months, a new opportunity emerged. One that honored his talents far more than the old. The silence had taught him faith. Silent endings also teach you the art of letting go without resentment. Dramatic endings often leave scars of anger and blame, but silent endings invite gentleness. They show you that not every ending must be a war. Sometimes people drift apart, dreams expire, or paths diverge without villains or victims. This lesson frees you from bitterness and allows you to carry the past as a chapter, not a chain. Sagittarius, your fire can burn hot with passion and anger, but silence cools that fire into acceptance. And acceptance is liberation. There is also the lesson of presence. When a chapter ends quietly, it reminds you that not everything is guaranteed. The conversations you assumed would continue forever may one day stop. The places you thought you would always belong may shift beneath your feet. Silent endings teach you to cherish the present moment, to savor laughter, love, and connection while they are here. They remind you to speak your truth while you can, to express gratitude before it is too late. In this way, endings make your living more vibrant. Sagittarius, perhaps the most profound lesson hidden in silence is that of self-trust. When there is no explanation, no closure, you must rely on your intuition to move forward. You must learn to say, I may not have all the answers, but I trust myself enough to begin again. Silent endings sharpen this trust like a blade. They strip away the external voices and leave you with your inner compass. And that compass, when you dare to follow it, will always lead you toward expansion. So when you look back at the endings in your life that came without sound or drama, do not see them as voids. See them as classrooms. The silence was your teacher, showing you truths that words could not. Self-awareness, trust, acceptance, presence, and self-reliance. These are the gifts you were handed when the noise faded away. At this second gate, Sagittarius, you are invited to honor the lessons that silence has offered you. They are not punishments but preparations. Each quiet ending has equipped you with wisdom, resilience, and clarity. And with those lessons carried in your heart, you are now ready to step through the third gate, where we will explore how silent endings clear the way for sacred beginnings that align with your truest destiny. Gate 3: the clearing of space for renewal. Sagittarius endings, especially silent ones, are not just about closure, they are about space. When something fades without noise, it leaves behind a gap. And though at first that gap may feel like emptiness, it is in fact the fertile ground where something sacred can grow. Your soul, fiery and expansive, was never meant to remain crowded by what no longer nourishes you. Silent endings are the universe's way of clearing the clutter from your spirit, so that renewal can find you. Think of it like a forest. When trees die quietly and fall without storm or fire, the soil beneath them is enriched, ready to nourish new life. Similarly, when relationships, dreams, or parts of your identity fall away softly, they leave nutrients for your growth. Sagittarius, you may not see it immediately. You may look at the empty space and feel only absence. But slowly life begins to sprout in unexpected ways. That ending that seemed to strip you of companionship eventually allows you to meet someone who reflects your soul. That passion you let go of makes room for a calling that aligns with your true purpose. What you thought was barren becomes the birthplace of your sacred beginning. There's a story of a Sagittarius woman who carried the quiet end of her marriage with deep sorrow. No fights, no dramatic breakup. Just two souls who drifted apart. For months she mourned the silence, the lack of closure. But over time she discovered the space it created. In that silence she found herself. She began writing again, traveling, discovering joys she had buried for years. The ending had cleared a sacred space, and in that space, she birthed a version of herself more alive than ever before. Sagittarius, one of your greatest challenges is your tendency to cling to the familiar, even as your spirit craves the new. You may convince yourself that keeping old relationships, jobs, or identities alive is safer than stepping into the unknown. But silent endings come to free you from this contradiction. They gently remove what you might have held onto too tightly, creating space that your restless spirit secretly longed for. And though the silence may sting, it is the silence of release, not rejection. Space is not something to fear. It is sacred. It is the pause between breaths, the rest between notes in a song, the stillness before the dawn. Without space, there is no room for creation. Silent endings remind you that your life, too, needs pauses, needs clearing, needs room to breathe. They ask you to trust that emptiness is not punishment. It is preparation. Another important truth. When something leaves quietly, it often does so because your soul is ready for more. If you stayed in that friendship, it might have kept you from meeting the people who now inspire and uplift you. If you clung to that career, you might have missed the opportunity aligned with your deeper gifts. If you held on to the old version of yourself, you could not have stepped into the expansive being you are becoming. Silent endings remove what would have crowded out your blessings. They are the pruning that makes way for fruit to grow. Sagittarius, notice how this shows up even in your inner world. There may be silent endings within you, the quiet fading of old beliefs, old identities, old fears. Perhaps you no longer feel the same pull toward self-doubt. Perhaps an old insecurity that haunted you for years has grown silent. These inner endings are sacred too. They create space in your heart for courage, for confidence, for freedom. Do not mourn what you are shedding. Celebrate the room it leaves behind. Consider the Sagittarius man who once defined himself by success and external recognition. Slowly, without fanfare, that drive began to fade. First, he panicked, thinking he was losing motivation. But in time, he realized he was not losing passion, he was making space. Into that space entered a deeper calling. To serve, to teach, to live with meaning rather than measurement. The silent ending of ambition for ambition's sake had opened the door to a sacred life of purpose. Sagittarius, your gift is expansion. But expansion is only possible when there is room. Silent endings clear that room. They strip away what is stale, what is finished, what no longer feeds your fire. They leave behind sacred space. Space where beginnings are born, not in noise but in grace. At this third gate, I invite you to shift your perspective. Do not see the emptiness as loss. See it as invitation. Do not fear the silence. It is the echo of space being cleared for your rebirth. The ending has already served its purpose. Now the soil of your life is open, ready, waiting for seeds of something sacred to take root. And as we step into the next gate, Sagittarius, we will explore the threshold itself. The sacred beginning that awaits once you walk fully through the door the ending has opened. Gate 4. The sacred beginning beyond the door. Sagittarius, every ending is a doorway, and every doorway leads to a threshold. Beyond that threshold lies something your soul has been longing for, something it could not reach while you were still tethered to the past. Silent endings, with all their subtlety and grace, are not simply about loss. They are about preparing you for the sacred beginnings waiting just beyond the door. And those beginnings, once embraced, carry a power that changes the entire trajectory of your life. Sacred beginnings are rarely loud. They don't always announce themselves with dramatic signs or sweeping transformation. More often they appear gently, like the first light of dawn that slowly paints the sky. At first you may not even notice them. A new connection feels like a passing acquaintance. A new idea feels like a fleeting thought. A new opportunity feels uncertain. But with time, you realize that these small sparks are the very beginnings your soul has been prepared for. The silence that closed one chapter becomes the soil in which the next quietly germinates. For Sagittarius, beginnings are your nature. You are the seeker, the archer, always ready to explore new horizons. Yet sacred beginnings differ from ordinary ones. They do not come from restlessness or escape. They come from alignment. They are not fueled by impulse but by truth. A sacred beginning is when your outer life finally matches your inner knowing. It is the job that feels like purpose instead of survival. It is the relationship that feels like home instead of compromise. It is the creative pursuit that feels like calling instead of distraction. Consider the Sagittarius woman who experienced the quiet end of a long friendship. For months she felt adrift, mourning the absence of someone who once defined her world. Then, slowly, she began to meet new people at work, in community spaces, in unexpected encounters. One day she realized her heart was full again, surrounded by relationships that reflected her growth, her freedom, her fire. The silent ending had been the doorway to a sacred beginning, the creation of a soul family who loved her as she truly was. Sagittarius, sacred beginnings also carry a sense of destiny. They feel different because they resonate deep in your spirit. You may not know why, but something inside you whispers, "This is it." That whisper is your compass, pointing you toward the horizon your soul has been waiting for. Trust it. Even if it doesn't make logical sense, even if others don't understand, your sacred beginning belongs to you. Another hallmark of sacred beginnings is expansion. When you step into them, your world grows wider. You feel lighter, freer, more authentic. The heaviness of the past no longer weighs you down. Instead, you sense possibility everywhere. This is the gift of sacred beginnings. They open not only one door but many. The relationship that feels aligned gives you courage to explore your dreams. The career that honors your talents leads you to new adventures. The creative project that ignites your soul inspires you to share your gifts with others. One beginning creates ripples of many. But to embrace a sacred beginning, Sagittarius, you must walk through the door fully. Too often we linger on the threshold, half in the past and half in the present. We keep one foot in what is gone, afraid to let go completely. But sacred beginnings require courage. They ask you to step boldly into the unknown, trusting that the space created by the ending was never meant to remain empty. The moment you commit, fully, wholeheartedly, the new chapter unfolds in all its brilliance. Think of the Sagittarius man who quietly left a career that no longer fulfilled him. At first he hesitated, dabbling in new pursuits but never committing. It was only when he finally chose to step through the door, embracing the uncertainty, that his sacred beginning revealed itself. What began as a small project blossomed into a vocation that brought him joy and purpose. The silent ending had cleared the way, but his courage to walk through the doorway allowed the sacred beginning to fully unfold. Sagittarius, your sacred beginning may already be here, waiting for you to notice it. It may be in the opportunities you've been hesitating to take, the people who have recently entered your life, the ideas that won't leave your mind. Pay attention. The universe does not send these lightly. They are seeds of the new chapter, quietly calling you to step forward. At this fourth gate, you are invited to release hesitation and claim the life that is unfolding. Trust that the silent endings of your past were never meant to harm you. They were meant to free you. And trust that what stands before you now is not random. It is sacred. The door is open. The horizon is wide. The beginning is here. All that remains is for you to walk through, Sagittarius, with your fire, your faith, and your fearless heart. Walking through the door. Sagittarius, your journey through endings and beginnings has shown you a truth that cannot be denied. Silence is not emptiness, and endings are not final. They are transitions, thresholds, and initiations into the next chapter of your becoming. Every quiet farewell, every fading dream, every chapter that slipped away without words was, in truth, the universe preparing you for something more aligned, more expansive, more sacred. The pain of endings often lies in their mystery. You wonder why, you question what you could have done differently. But when you step back, you see the deeper design. The silence was not punishment. It was protection. It was grace, removing what no longer fit, so that your soul could finally stretch into its fullest form. And now, as you stand at this doorway, the sacred beginning is no longer distant. It is here unfolding, waiting for you to claim it. So breathe, Sagittarius. Release the weight of what has ended, and trust the promise of what is arriving. Your destiny is not behind you. It is ahead, shimmering with possibilities your spirit has always known were meant for you. Walk through the door with courage. Trust that the universe has prepared this moment just for you. If these words spoke to your heart, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe, so that more Sagittarians can find the strength to embrace their own sacred beginnings. Because the truth is simple. Every silent ending in your life has been a hidden blessing, and every blessing is now leading you to a beginning more beautiful than you can imagine.